Well, I grew up in a New Zealand which taught me that Maori-Pakeha relationships were a model for the rest of the world. I must confess, possibly because I had very little contact with Maoris until my 20s, I believed it. Did you ever believe it?
I think that probably most of us went through a phase where we did believe that this was right, that we have probably the most subtle conditioning of any people in the world, that we are told in every form of the education system that, how great the Pakehas have been to us, how lucky we are, how fortunate we are to have such wonderful white people in the country. And I think that most of us have gone through a period of trauma before we've actually decided, well, this isn't really true, because from the information that we have from our personal experience.
Was it a sort of gradual process, Hana, or was there a sort of one day, one moment, one incident that triggered off your awareness that this wasn't true?
Well, I think it mainly comes about when you get older. I had it at school that I was called a fat black Maori, and not only that, but I was a Catholic, so I'd also been discriminated there. And I think that with my mother and her background, that she was slowly conditioning us to accept discrimination as being our lot. I think that for myself, it came about with the awareness that when I went out for a job, when I wanted accommodation, it was only then that I was made to feel a Maori. I think I really thought that I was English, with my whole outlook on life, with my whole feeling of being grateful that the English had come to New Zealand, and would have been terrible if it had been the Japanese or some other race of people. The whole educational system made me feel like an English person. And it was only through the discrimination of the whites against myself, or the Pakeha, that made me realise that I was a Maori. It wasn't myself that's saying I am a Maori, but it was the other people saying, well, we don't have Maoris in our accommodation. Maoris cannot have a flat, cannot have a job. And it was only with this sort of awareness that I began to feel different. And it's the difference that makes of the other people, which are the Pakehas, that made me feel, well, if I am different, then I'm going to be proud of being different and not ashamed, as my mother was made to feel.
Will this new Maori awareness result in, at least temporarily, an animosity between Maori and Pakeha? I have in mind things like the phenomenon of Maori gangs developing, even in schools.
I think this is a natural result of the Pakeha system being imposed on them. That because they feel inferior, because the system doesn't cater for them, then they group together because of this common feeling of inferiority, of the feeling that they're not being catered for in the system. And I think we're going to have all the problems that we've had in any other country in the world, purely and simply because New Zealand society will be too slow to change, to realise that the symptoms which are there are the symptoms which were in the cities of other countries, in a very short time before racial conflagration broke out. All the symptoms are here. It's going to happen unless we do something now.
Auckland, since I knew it back in the 50s, of course, has got an island population, or an islander population now, which is significant. I'm told that islander and Maori don't get on together.
Yes, we're always told this too, and of course it's absolute crap, because it's not true. And this is one thing that we're out to dispel as soon as we can. And the Panther Party, which is a Polynesian movement similar to ours, and us have got together on several occasions now and are working together just to put an end to this kind of rubbish. And what you've found in the so-called gangs is a kind of pan-Polynesian identity. And this is the most fantastic thing about it. But we've always been told by the newspapers, by the radio, by all the media, and by Pakehas, of course, who don't know anything better, that we don't like islanders and that islanders don't like us,
And that we must be protected from the islanders coming over here and taking our land and our jobs. And this, in fact, is putting us against one another, when, to me, and this is probably a racist statement, that the people that are taking our lands are the Pakehas in New Zealand, not the Polynesians, who, in fact, have more right, in my opinion, to be in New Zealand than the people from Europe.
What sort of New Zealand, Syd and Hana, do you think your children are going to grow up into?
I'm not at all hopeful that we'll get the society that I would like to see in New Zealand, but we are attempting to build the kind of society which we want, which would ensure full equality of opportunity for Maori and for Pakeha?
I think I'm probably more optimistic, and I perhaps think that the outside influences of what's been happening to other countries, the question about air pollution, about all the problems of the world today, we can relate to them and try and avoid if we're sensible enough. And I believe, because of last year we ran a conservation week, that we managed to get many young people concerned about conservation. Now that is the start, that they will be the future people of tomorrow, and if we can get them at a younger age to take notice, then perhaps we could build a better world around us.